podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Ryan Giggs is on 899 games. Sadly, Mrs. Giggs didn't let him go to Amsterdam, so he didn't hit 900.
Which Mrs. Giggs would that be then?
You know, the one he's actually married to.
Ah, right. Good. Yeah, just checking on that one.
So, do you think he's going to get to 900 against Ajax next week?
Yeah, I think so. Otherwise, it's an awful long break without a game, isn't it? Yeah, we might see him maybe off the bench. We'll talk about Ajax in more depth, but it's so comfortable against Ajax in Amsterdam. I can't see them doing anything, no matter what team Ferguson puts out. So hopefully we'll see a few kids and that kind of thing. It'd be nice, wouldn't it? And a nice easy victory with such a short time before the next Premier League game.
Yeah, absolutely. Ryan Giggs, an amazing tweet from @Steve Bartram, who works at Manchester United, comparing Ryan Giggs' appearance numbers with various other figures from United's past. Ryan Giggs has more United appearances than Best and Law combined.
All right, yeah.
And also more than David Beckham, Cristiano Ronaldo and Eric Cantona all combined.
Incredible stats. I mean, the amount of goals he scored, amount of assists he got. From the early part of his career, the assists data isn't as good as it is, but pretty sure he's the all-time leading Premier League assist maker. The amount of games he's played in all these competitions, over 140 in Europe, for example. The amount of trophies he's got, 33, I believe, and the amount of personal honours is massive long list of. I mean, I did a little infographic for the website, thinking he might play on Thursday night, and he didn't, and I left half of the personal honours out because he's got honorary degrees from every university on the planet and so on, and the Welsh Sports Personality of the Year 87 times in a row and that kind of thing.
When I lived in Wales for a little while, when I went to university and lived in Wales, it was just funny because literally Welsh Sports Personality of the Year and the Welsh Sports Personality of the Year is, oh look, it's lovely Ryan Giggs again. Well done, Ryan. Home from home for you, this, of course.
Yeah. So yeah, incredible career. I mean, you do run out of words, don't you, to describe what an achievement it is. And I think we've almost become kind of a bit blasé about Giggs because he doesn't get he should be, I think people should rank him up there with the very best ever. And it's not just of his talent. I mean, he's obviously a supremely talented player with limitations, but in any age, but especially in the modern age of football with the pace the game's played at and all of that, to go on as long as he has and continually contribute as well is incredible. I mean, he's helped, of course, the fact that United are skint and Ferguson doesn't have any money to go out and buy a replacement, but it's still an incredible achievement.
Yeah, and it's very interesting to watch him this season. I guess it's a nice segue into the Liverpool game because he had a fairly typical Ryan Giggs this season-esque performance against Liverpool. Gave the ball away a lot, was quite frustrating, and then as soon as he has an opportunity to actually create something, and it's really explosive, like he'll give the ball away a lot in the sort of middle third of the pitch, but when he's in the final third, he's just devastating.
I mean, his past stats are at the sort of just over 70 mark, whereas Scholes will be in the 90s, so that kind of gives you an idea. I think back to the 99 final when Ferguson talked about the tactics for that final with Keane and Scholes out, and he talked about whether he'd play Ryan Giggs in the centre or Beckham, and he chose not to play Giggs in there because he said his bursty style might mean that he loses possession a bit more, and it is typical Giggs performance at the moment. He is wasteful with the ball, and you kind of think he shouldn't be, really. I mean, all that experience on his side, you'd think he'd be a bit smarter in possession, but he does feel like he is wasteful with the ball, but excellent cross for the second goal, and he continues to do that. He's got, for the amount of games, he's got incredible amount of assists this season already.
And they say, that Arsenal sort of starting 1-0 up at the moment because of Robin Van Persie, although that didn't apply on Wednesday night this week. But we're sort of starting 1-0 up every time Giggsy plays because he'll get an assist every game.
Right, yeah. And it's been important that he's played a role. I mean, whether he's played through central midfield or just behind the striker, let's say this season, and he's even played sometimes on the left wing, which is the old stomping ground, of course, and that's been important because we've had so many wide players injured. So he's playing I'm not surprised he's been given a new deal. A, United don't have that much in the kitty to spend in the summer, and B, he's still contributing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And he did, of course, play on the left against Liverpool. So let's do this chronologically, shall we? The game started and, I was really shocked that Suárez didn't take Evra's hand. But I figure everyone has talked about this. We've talked about the Suárez everything every week. And I don't know about you, but I feel like I've pretty much said almost everything I've got to say on the subject.
I think you're right. I feel burnt out by it as well. I'm kind of sick of talking about it. I'm definitely sick of writing about it on the website, and I'm sick of all the debate. Although I would say that it all converged into one moment there. And one of the really interesting things I thought about that, the lack of handshake moment, was not Suárez's reaction per se or Evra's. I mean, it didn't actually surprise me that much when that happened. I talked about it on goal.com live chat we did, web chat we did the week before, and I said I thought they would shake hands. So I guess in that sense I predicted the opposite of what happened, but I wasn't that surprised that Suárez didn't do it. But I thought it had a really important effect, because whereas Liverpool as a club and the fans and the player could deny anything happened with Evra because there was no smoking gun, it wasn't caught on camera or anything like that, the racial abuse. This was, and it was broadcast around the world to hundreds of millions of people, live in the United States. And the sponsors, I said this before, didn't I, a few weeks ago, at what point would the sponsors get in touch with Fenway Sports? And that's when something will happen. And it's exactly what happened. Standard Chartered called up Fenway called up Liverpool and read them the right tact, and suddenly everyone's very contrite about what had happened.
I thought of you when the PR machine finally started to spin properly from Liverpool, because I thought this is exactly what Ed said would happen. At some point, the sponsors will get involved and there'll be pressure on the owners. And of course, it's no coincidence that the Liverpool apology, in inverted commas, the first bit of mediatory PR from Liverpool came out the day after articles had appeared in the Boston Globe and the New York Times.
Right, yeah. But it's the same way with the Glazer family. They only care and start making responses when there's articles in the States.
Yeah. Well,
it's their home turf. They don't want to be made out to be showing lack of leadership, which actually Fenway have shown a massive lack of leadership on this. They didn't want to be shown up to be doing that. And it was a leader by Rob Hughes, I mean, he's an English writer, but a leader in the New York Times, and then that really provoked a reaction, and a strong one at that.
What's extraordinary is, I guess it's not even extraordinary, what's really sad and sort of terrifying has been the Liverpool fan response. I have finally started to see some Liverpool fans saying that they pretty much thought that Suárez behaved disgracefully. I finally saw that for the first time after the handshake incident. But then still this kind of further retreating into the trenches. There's very interesting conversations at my work with a couple of Liverpool fans, one of whom was just absolutely kind of disgusted by the way the club had handled the whole thing, and said he was kind of relieved when the American PR people stepped in and some slickness was finally put in place with the message.
Right.
Dalglish's post-match interview was
disgraceful. Yeah,
he's worse than Fergie at dealing with the press, and that's something.
Yeah, well, Fergie wouldn't answer those questions. He would just say, you're being stupid, I'm not answering that, use bass, blah blah blah, beep.
Well, that's pretty much what Kenny Dalglish did, but Dalglish was just super hostile, wasn't he?
Well, he was very hostile. He also retreated into paranoia very, very quickly, blamed the media for it all, which was just insane. It's not 24-hour news that made Luis Suárez reject Patrice Evra's hand twice as well, Evra put his hand out, he rejected it, he rejected it when Evra grabbed him. In fact, he rejected it when David De Gea tried to point him that way as well, so maybe we should say it 3 times. Now, I did find it hilarious. I mean, you talked about the fan response there. There's a couple of blog posts, one on This Is Anfield. Proof that Evra rejected Suárez's handshake. And then afterwards, the edit, after Suárez had apologised, or sort of semi-apologised to his club, didn't apologise to Evra, which is the apology he really needs to make. And then the edit afterwards, we still believe that Evra caused this. I was like, okay. Yeah. And deluded to the last. It's the ultimate proof of the cult of Liverpool.
Yeah, I read an article on Anfield Wrap today, which I couldn't get through it because by the time I got halfway through, I just thought this is just sad at this point. It's just sad to see human beings identifying with a football club so strongly, basically, to the point at which all rational thought all goes out the window, and all the potential that your team is somehow in the wrong is just unbearable. And, these terrible American owners making us kowtow to the Fergie biased media and all this stuff.
Right, yeah.
There's crazy people, there's just people completely entrenched in distinctly wrong-headed viewpoints that they think they're supposed to hold.
Yeah, and the worrying thing is, everyone said, we're going to move on, and United could do nothing other than release a statement saying, we accept that apology and we'll move on. Evra won't get a personal apology. He should do, but he won't get it. But I don't think we can move on just yet, because there's still going to be commentary about this, and I think the drama with Suárez may go on a bit further. I mean, obviously, stories about him in Paris Saint-Germain. I wouldn't be surprised whether Liverpool didn't decide to cut their losses.
Fergie said he was a disgrace to the club, and if he was in charge, he'd sell him.
Yeah, right. Well, and coming from Fergie, he probably would, wouldn't he? He's not slow to make a decision to get rid of a player when he's decided enough is enough. So I wouldn't be surprised at all. It might be best for the player, and certainly best for Liverpool, just to move on from that. And you kind of get a sense they're moving round to the let's blame Suárez for all of this once the sponsors start getting involved. I mean, look, Standard Chartered pay them £20 million a year. That's a hell of a lot of dough for a club that isn't competing at the highest level, and the bank is paying that money because of Liverpool's global reach and the iconic status they have and the number of millions of fans they have, and to associate their name with them. Now, if Liverpool is a club that is deeply associated with racism, and Standard Chartered is primarily an internationalised bank, based in Asia, aren't they, but international, then that is not a good mix. Not a good mix at all. And if I was their CMO, I might be looking at the fine print of that contract and whether they can start negotiating their way out of it. So no surprise that Liverpool suddenly started to act when that came down to that.
No, absolutely. There was a football match, and it was an excellent one. United were excellent. I could not believe that Kenny Dalglish had not listened to the Rantcast and put some people on Scholes and pressured him, but having given him the freedom of Anfield, he gave him the freedom of Manchester as well, and he had Wayne Rooney to actually put chances away this time. That lack of incision that there was at Anfield was not in evidence. 2 goals in quick succession, and one of Rooney's best ever performances against Liverpool, I'd say.
Rooney was very good. He was very good, especially in the second half, I thought, and he really pulled Liverpool all around, and yeah, fine performance by United all round, really. It was just a good solid performance, and it was just that last sort of 15 minutes again, wasn't it? Liverpool made some substitutions and brought themselves back into the game. Thankfully, this time didn't have the wrong result at the end of it all, and good solid 3 points for United.
Yeah, after Rooney got that first, I thought we really need a second quickly here, because Liverpool will get back into this at some point, and it was good that we did get that second. It was interesting when Liverpool changed. I felt like at Anfield it was really Fergie that didn't respond to the change, but here I almost felt like it was the United players that didn't respond, and they'd been used to playing the game at basically at walking pace. Every time Carrick and Scholes got the ball, they had absolutely ages to think about what they wanted to do with it. And whilst their incredible passing statistics were in large part due to what wonderful players they're in, both in excellent veins of form, but it was also to do with the fact that at no point were they under any threat from any Liverpool players, so they could pick the passes they wanted to.
Yeah.
Then for that last 15 to 20 minutes after Craig Bellamy came on, basically, suddenly they didn't have time on the ball anymore, and it looked like it was a bit of a jolt to the system a couple of times. A couple of times they gave the ball away somewhat sloppily, and just found that they had players on them more quickly.
Yep, that's true. And going back to that lack of pressing for much of the game for over 60 minutes, and really a huge tactical error by Dalglish. It's just so plainly obvious, and maybe it says something about him as a coach as well as him as a person, the media interviews. So big mistake there. And once they brought the extra striker on, they had a bit more of a focal point to the attack, and there's a bit of momentum going behind Liverpool, and they really did get back into the game. I mean, didn't ever feel that United's lead was under genuine threat, really, although a couple of saves by De Gea again, wasn't there? But in the end, a well-deserved victory, and I think anything other than victory for United would have been a real shame.
We had a question from Mark_Pud about whether Anders Lindegaard's injury is really helping David De Gea, because his place is not under threat, and so he can just play.
Well, he's playing every week as well. Word is that Lindegaard's ankle injury is not good, and he'll be out for quite some time, so I think think De Gea can probably see himself playing the next 6, 7, whatever games, yeah.
And he's been pretty much free from the mistake, like since that really terrible mistake for the first goal at Anfield, he hasn't made another one, and he's made a series of increasingly spectacular saves. Well, perhaps not increasingly spectacular, because the one against Chelsea, pretty much the most spectacular save I've ever seen in my life. I was thinking about that today, because I was talking about it with someone, and I had a little look at the image of that again, the one where he actually looks like a superhero, and he's at full strength and taking the ball with his wrong hand. And it really is up there with the kind of Banks against Pele save and all those saves that you think is just quintessentially the best saves ever sort of thing. It was really extraordinary.
Yeah, and a great picture, and that always helps capture the moment, doesn't it? Yeah. On the wider point of De Gea's form, yeah, he's been very good, and it's just the little bit about his security when the ball's coming in from crosses and corners and set plays and all of that, and that's the bit that is going to worry everyone until he puts together a series of games where he doesn't make any mistakes in those kind of positions, and he makes the right decision all of the time. And maybe that's still not happening just yet, but nothing calamitous in the last few games, and as you said, a whole bunch of very solid saves.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's pretty much played with Rio and Johnny Evans in front of him for a few games in a row, and
I'm sure that helps as well. Yeah, I mean, the defence is still changing every single game, and we haven't played the same back four for 3 weeks running for as long as I can remember, right? But yeah, having Rio and Evans there, and both playing well, both of them, and Evans has had a whole bunch of solid games in a row now, I'd say. That must help him as well. Just a bit of security in the knowledge that he will be playing every week, and a bit of confidence and making some good saves and all of that. And that's all good.
So there's quite a lot of Welbeck versus Hernandez debate before the Liverpool game. Fergie saying that perhaps after the Anfield game that perhaps he should have started with Chicharito. Oh no, after the Chelsea game, saying he should have started with Chicharito, leading to many people speculating that he might start him against Liverpool. But I don't know. I just thought that was sort of Fergie being Fergie, because Chicharito's had to come on as a sub a lot, and I think that was the kind of media interview equivalent of an arm round the shoulder for Chicharito in some ways. So I wasn't surprised to see Welbeck playing, and another fine game from Welbeck.
Yeah, and as we're used to seeing from him now, aren't we? I mean, he's really turning himself into a real top-class forward. I mean, I can't see anything other than Welbeck going to the Euros with England, and even though it's going to be a disaster for the English team, should be good experience for Welbeck, and really on current form and ability, he should start with Rooney, shouldn't he? Well, when Rooney finally gets a game for the last and final game that England have at the tournament.
Well, unless the incoming England manager suddenly realises that it's not impossible that he could have Michael Carrick and Paul Scholes as his starting midfield, in which case England would suddenly become more effective. I think it is absolutely hilarious that we live in a country where Michael Carrick isn't like a massively, massively obvious first name on the team sheet sort of choice for the national team. It's incredible, really, given the form that he's been in the last 6 months.
Well, yes, I mean, the form he's been in since November at least, and he certainly deserves a place in the side, but I don't know. I mean, the kind of dynamic up and Assam Parker type player always gets the headlines in England. It's just the way things are, and fans seem to appreciate that. And I think Carrick's a more understated way of playing the way he screens the back four, and his excellent use of possession would be appreciated in Spain more than it would in England.
Yeah, absolutely. And lots of talk of Scholes coming out of retirement play for England.
Yeah. Won't happen.
Well, I don't know. The thing is, I'm not totally convinced by that. Fergie obviously said no, I think it's ridiculous, but he would say that.
And Scholes has said no every year for the last 8 years.
Well, except that in the retirement interview, he said he pretty much really regretted not going to the World Cup.
Yeah, but he's a player, and of course he wants to be involved in the big tournaments, but with him the decision's always about family first. He could have gone, right? Last time he could have gone. He decided he was asked too late, and the players that had taken England to the tournament should play, and his family were there, and he had plans already and booked his holiday and all that. So I just can't see it happening. I'm
not so convinced. I think if Redknapp gets the job, he's not just going to get his assistant to give Scholes a quick text message, is he? He's going to do the full, oh, I love you, sunshine, come on, come play with us, it'll be absolutely marvellous, we'll have a lovely time.
He'll drive around to Scholes' house and sit in his car and just talk out the window, right?
He will. That's because that's how he has all his conversations.
I don't think Redknapp actually has legs. I think he's just permanently in. He's like Ironside, but in a in a Volvo.
So, at Akalik asked a question for us, at _Akalik, asked us the question about Welbeck or Hernandez and who should be starting, given that it seems that Hernandez has more goals in him, but Welbeck's link-up play is obviously much better. And actually, the game against Ajax sort of typified Hernandez because he sort of got in the way a bit quite a few times. When he's not the last point in a move, you know, you generally want Cleverley and Rooney and Young to be knocking the ball about amongst each other.
Well, his first touch is heavy, and his second touch is to steady himself, and his third touch is to a player 15 yards behind him. But he breaks up the moves because he's just not as comfortable in that sort of back to the goal, bringing other players into the game role as Welbeck is. So, yeah, right now, Hernandez is the better finisher, and it's an area of Welbeck's game that has improved, but his goal record isn't awesome by any means. But Welbeck's got a better all-round game.
Yeah, but, you know, as you said, I think a couple of weeks ago on the Rantcast, if you want somebody to nick a goal for you, you definitely want Hernandez around, don't you? Because, I mean, again, today he got United second, which could be absolutely crucial in the tie. I mean, it certainly puts a very different complexion on the game at Old Trafford in a week.
Yes, it does. I mean, 2-0 is a very comfortable cushion given how lightweight Ajax are, and Hernandez makes a difference. I mean, in that he's constantly buzzing around the central defenders. He makes central defenders drop a little bit deeper because of the pace that's available he's got, and that changes the dynamic of the game somewhat from the way Welbeck plays. Welbeck runs the channels. He's physical. He's not slow by any means, but he plays in a different way in that he's prepared to be involved in the game a little bit more than Hernandez is, who really wants to find that ball going in between the two central defenders, and that pace is kind of really dangerous. I wish he'd stay onside a bit more though. He really does have a problem with timing of his runs, and the amount of times he's offside is really quite incredible and frustrating.
I just don't find it nearly as frustrating as everyone else seems to, because it's just his game. He's just always going to be either almost offside or offside.
Yes, but you give possession back to the opposition.
Yeah, you do, or you score. And I think he scores often enough that it'd be lovely if every single one of his runs was perfectly timed, but I think it's a percentages game. It's just that it's so devastating when it works that it's worth doing it a few times when it doesn't work. That kind of off the shoulder of the last defender right to the absolute kind of breaking point of their offside trap.
But he's got so much pace that you kind of feel he'll beat almost any defender anyway and just give himself an extra yard.
Right, yeah. No, you might be right about that. Wayne Rooney with what can only be described as a hideously classless tweet just after the Toure brothers had helped the Ivory Coast to lose the most dramatic penalty shootout I've ever seen in my life. Rooney tweeting, how funny is it that the Toures were there till the end of the tournament, have come home with nothing.
I know, but he's only articulating what most Manchester United fans are thinking. That's schadenfreude, isn't it? And not very tasteful for a fellow pro to do that. But you're pretty sure that a lot of United fans were thinking that one.
Well, I wonder about it. I wonder what it sort of says about the relationship between the players and the two clubs, because you often think that, you know, players for rival clubs, actually probably there's not that much enmity between them because they have more in common than separates them. You know, it's like the old thing about backbench MPs. The enemies are not the opposition MPs, they're your fellow backbench MPs who will be competing for the same jobs as you. So in some ways, but it makes me wonder if there's actually some genuine sort of enmity between the United and City camps at the moment.
Well, I'm sure there's some friendly rivalry, or maybe not so friendly. I haven't seen anything in any of the games particularly that looks like it's of a personal nature, but clearly Rooney was watching and enjoyed that one. So, I mean, look, when United go and play City at Eastlands on the 28th of April, I'm sure the Toure brothers will be reminding him of that one, and especially if City win. So let's hope that Rooney does the business on the day, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I know this is United rant, not general football in general rant, but I am not going to be able to get through this show without talking about that Africa Cup of Nations final. The most emotional I've ever felt about a football match that didn't involve a team I was actually, a supporter of. Just an incredible thing. I mean, if you can find a more emotive setting for a football match than an African night where it's absolutely pouring with rain and a team who've been rebuilt, from the ashes of a terrible tragedy where they lost their best national team ever about 19 years ago, and the head of their FA was one of the few survivors from that plane crash, and, you know, the game itself was kind of okay. Drogba took the worst penalty I've ever seen. Did you see it?
Yeah. Terrible effort. Yeah.
I mean, it was like a golf chip over the bar. It was almost like the perfect bad penalty. And in fairness, you can imagine how pressured he would have felt at that moment. And it's understandable that he kind of completely tonked it. But still, the penalty shootout, it went on for
forever. Yeah,
20 minutes. And every single penalty was just like perfect penalty after perfect penalty.
Well, until they started missing them, yeah. But, the fifth Zambian kick, where a lad who looked about 12 was sent up to take in. If there was someone that was going to miss, you thought it would be him, and he put it right in the top corner.
That Hargreaves in the Champions League final penalty shootout, yeah.
In Moscow, yeah. Yeah, very, very good, very dramatic. I mean, perhaps not so good if you're a fan of Zambia or Ivory Coast.
My view is that no penalty shootout should count from now on, unless at least one of the teams has all their players on the touchline linked arms and singing, and all their players in the centre circle linked arms and singing, and when they go up to take the winning penalty, all the way to the penalty spot, that chap, he was just singing as he walked up to the penalty spot. No, I don't know. I've never been quite so moved by a football match. Incredible scenes. So from incredible scenes at the final of a major international tournament to a functional, effective, much improved in the second half performance from Manchester United away in Holland. Giggs did not go to Amsterdam, but the rest of the United boys did, minus Patrice Evra.
So yeah, Patrice Evra given a rest, and I think a well-earned rest after everything that's happened in the last few months, and the fact he's played so many games, and I know you wanted to touch on Evra's celebration after the Liverpool game, and you saw a massive release of all the tension, didn't you? I actually thought there was a load of fuss about nothing for that one, just an attempt to balance up some of the controversy. He celebrated in front of every stand. I don't think, looking at the replay, he even knew Suarez was there.
He definitely knew Suarez was there. He didn't. He clocked him and then walked over with his back to him in order to do the thing of looking like he didn't know he was there. He was totally giving it the... Because, you know, in the first minute of the game, he tried to decapitate Suarez and nearly accidentally killed Rio instead.
Yeah, well, this is true. But, I mean, even so, look, what does it matter? He's in front of the Stretford end. I think if he'd gone over to the corner of the K stand there where the Liverpool fans were and done that might have been different. Although, could you really incite any more hatred between the two sets of fans? I'm not sure you could. No problem for me. He's not been charged by the FA for it, and it's just a load of fuss over nothing. I thought a bigger issue, and not covered in the mainstream media much anyway, was the fact that the Greater Manchester Police seized a load of copies of Red Issue, and we had a chat a few months ago when I very nearly put something very similar in Rant Monthly and decided not to on account of how tasteless it is making a joke out of using the KKK, because obviously the KKK is an organisation that engaged in brutal murder of people, and so a lot of that is not very funny. So it was a very tasteless joke by Red Issue. I have a copy, and to cut out and keep KKK hood with Suarez is innocent and LFC printed on it, and it's clearly a piece of satire. In fact, Private Eye ran a very similar joke about John Terry a few weeks ago. So a massive sense of humour failure by the Greater Manchester Police there, and I wouldn't have thought it will come to anything. They are going to have to prove, it's gone to the Crown Prosecution Service, but they're going to have to prove that a crime was committed there, a race hate crime, and if you can't tell that is satire and humour, then you really do have a problem.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you could claim it was a race hate crime because it's in a Manchester United magazine, so they're not actually saying that Suarez is innocent and they love LFC, and as soon as you make that point, everything else completely falls apart, doesn't it? I mean, it's not illegal to make satire, really poor quality, lowbrow satire of the most kind of base, lowest common denominator, unfunny kind, but still, you know, it's not illegal, it's just stupid.
Well, you have to take that literally, so you have to say, this is United fans printing pictures of Ku Klux Klan hood for people to wear and saying that Suarez is innocent and supporting Liverpool. You have to take it literally for you to assume that there was a problem there. And there's also the excuse, which was insane by the chief superintendent, that people waving this in the crowds could incitement to violence and that kind of thing. It's just, really? Seriously? Yeah, people waving a fanzine in the crowd were going to cause a riot, and nothing to do with Luis Suarez acting like a complete buffoon. In fact, I was way more offended by the images of Luis Suarez on my screen. I mean, here's an actual confirmed proven 115 pages of factually proven racist on our screen, getting paid millions of pounds a year. I'm pretty bloody offended by that.
Yeah, and absolutely, it's not illegal. There's no way that's going to stick, surely, and it is pretty despicable that the police kind of took that away. It's a massive waste of police resources, if nothing else.
And this was a massive waste of rant listeners' resources to listen to this rant, and in the middle of what we were going to talk about, actually, which was the Ajax game, and I think you call it a functional performance, and it was pretty much. I mean, a few jokes flying around about United players having smoked a reefer or two, because they were pretty ponderous in the first half. Well, not bad, it was just slow. It was just slow, and there was no change of pace there. Thought they could move the ball a lot quicker. Nani was obviously having a very bad day at the office, so understandably he's not actually had a training session at all.
And he was not in the best of form before he got injured either.
Right, yeah, so you can excuse all that. Perhaps can't excuse some of the selfishness. There was an incredible amount of selfishness. The shooting when he should have crossed on multiple occasions, and obviously Young, his touch wasn't great, and he hasn't played for ages. Cleverley, he got the ball and moved it, didn't do anything particularly dangerous with it. It was just that kind of laboured performance in the first half. Much better in the second half. Actually had some penetration.
I felt like the first half was a really good performance just waiting to happen. It felt like it was just, all over Twitter, all I saw was, God, United have been rubbish in this first half. And I was thinking, well, they sort of have been a bit rubbish, but it feels like it's just about to click. And actually the last 2 minutes of the first half, or maybe the last 3 or 4 minutes of the first half, United managed to get some moves strung together and actually did look threatening a couple of times. The old jokes about them being afraid of the hairdryer at half time might have been a factor, because I'm sure Fergie was not happy, and in his post-match interview actually he was pretty disparaging about United's first half performance and not particularly complimentary about their second half performance either. Said he thought it could have been a lot better, which it certainly could have done, and if Ajax were actually any good, especially in the final third, they could have caused United a lot more trouble. There were a few opportunities they nearly gave themselves a good opportunity and then sort of shot tamely from 20 yards out instead of making better decisions.
The front three were dangerous at times for Ajax, but really had not a lot. I think lightweight was what I felt about them, basically, and Eriksen had a decent game. I mean, I've seen him a few times before, because obviously Champions League, they were in the group stages, unlucky, as we said, to go out, and they show some Eredivisie games on ESPN as well, so I have nothing better to do. I watch that now and again, and he's a good player. It's a big leap to say he's a good player at Ajax in the Dutch league, so he can play for one of the big clubs in Europe at the kind of fee Ajax seem to be looking for him. But I think if he matures, he will be up there with the better sort of attacking midfielders in Europe. Whether he's more than that, I'm not sure. But he did okay. I didn't think he made a massive advert for himself, but I just generally thought all over the pitch Ajax there's just nothing really about them, just no real oomph. They didn't put United under a lot of pressure at any point, really. David De Gea didn't have to do much at all, a couple of saves, but really that was it. Ajax were happy to let United have the ball, but didn't press at all, not even really in their own defensive third. And I really, as a result, I really can't see them doing anything at Old Trafford at all. It didn't look like they had any pace that they could even hit anyone on the break. I mean, the big lad didn't look like he had much about him at all. I'd be more tempted to move the forwards around a little bit and play Ladero, and at least he's a technical player and got a bit of talent about him. Not very complimentary about Patrice Evra this week, mind you, but are any Uruguayans. But there you go. I think, solid, functional, great result really, 2-0 away from home, and Ferguson can play all the guys who need some minutes. Cleverley, Young, Nani, especially now it looks like Valencia might be out for a few weeks, and Phil Jones, Smalling probably needs some time, so and he can do all that and not worry about it really, and maybe some of the kids will get a game. I mean, it doesn't seem to have happened much this season, but maybe Pogba will get a game, for example.
The performance from United was slightly disjointed in the first half, as we've said, and I'm sure that part of that is because a lot of players coming back from injury. When that happens all at once, I mean, Jones, Nani, Young, Cleverley, all of their first game back from injury. Some of those have been out for a long time, of course. Tom Cleverley's return, a lot's been said about him in his absence, and a lot of people sort of saying there's an unrealistic burden of expectation on him, but I don't think that's the case. I genuinely believe he is an absolute absolutely superbly talented footballer. And you said he didn't do a lot in the first half, but he was quietly effective and he kept the ball fantastically. And
oh yeah, and he's very good at that. His pass stats are always very good. Well, I was looking for a bit more penetration from him. That's all. Well, he's done so well in basically he only had like sort of 4.5 games or something, hasn't he, for United this season? But what he's done very well is pass move, and kept United ticking, and he helps with the tempo of the game, and I guess that's what we're looking for him. Basically, he's had an hour of football since 10th of September, so he's pretty much had 6 months out, and that's a long time out, and it's going to take him a little while, but it's a massive bonus for United. He's back for the run. A huge blow that Valencia is out for what could be a few weeks with a hamstring problem, but a massive bonus that Cleverley's there, because he's going to add an extra dimension to United's midfield.
Yeah, he certainly is, and I think he factors in a lot to the Welbeck versus Hernandez debate, because I think that him sat behind Rooney and Welbeck is potentially absolutely devastating in terms of creating incisive opportunity, because there's so much fluidity and movement and interplay.
That's what he does. He passes moves, and he's not the kind of playmaker who gets the ball and hits 60-yard Hollywood passes. He does that very rarely, but he picks the simple passes out. But mostly they're incisive, and they weren't so much against Ajax. But I think that will come once he gets a few more minutes under his belt, and that's what was key to United's play in the sort of late summer when United were playing so well. It was all revolving around him and his movement.
I just don't feel that any lack of incision in his passing in the game against Ajax was reflective of where he's at, really, in terms of coming back from injury and how effective he's been so far. I think it was a lot to do with the movement in front of him and the opportunities created. Maybe I'm slightly doe-eyed by the prospect of seeing him again, and I'm kind of wishing it to be better than it was. But I thought it was a very effective hour, and he was a big part of that initial spell of pressure in the second half.
He'll get time in the second leg for sure, won't he? He might play the entire game in the second leg, depending on how his training's at for the next week or so.
And a goal from Ashley Young. Ashley Young really did look like he was struggling being back in the side, but took his goal excellently and really earned it.
If you're looking at it, you'd say he should have hit it first time with his left foot, but he was composed enough to cut inside. I thought he might have wasted the opportunity, but good job he didn't, because other than that, he didn't have a great game, and pretty offensive dive as well. I mean, there's nothing, just really terrible. But yeah, so didn't have a good game all round, but got the goal, and that'll do him good. He really does need some good football though, because aside from that period in the late summer, early autumn, he's had a few months of not playing very well before he got injured.
Yeah, and there was talk that he'd actually been carrying an injury through some of that, not playing very well, so it'd be interesting to see if he can get fully fit and find a level of performance again. But he's always been inconsistent wherever he's been throughout his career, Ashley Young.
And one man who's very consistent, and it'll be a huge blow, Antonio Valencia, hobbled off with a couple of minutes to go. He came on as a sub and then hobbled off almost immediately, and Fergie confirmed that he has a hamstring problem, and that could be a few weeks, that could be, depending on how serious it is. I assume they'll get the scan, and hopefully it's just a grade 1, and he'll be 2 or 3 weeks rather than 5 or 6 or 7.
What Fergie actually said, of course, is that he has a hamstring. He's got a bit of a hamstring,
which is helpful, I find, in a sports person to have a hamstring.
Always worrying when substitutes come on and then get hamstring injuries, and you always kind of question the warm-up, because obviously hamstrings are so vulnerable to not stretching properly.
It's a Michael Owen, isn't it? That's what he does all the time. Should just call it an Owen.
And talking of just calling it things, when someone really, really wastes a fantastic opportunity, or when someone's corner is so bad, it kind of just goes backwards into the opposition fans, that's called a nanny. That was the nanniest nanny ever nannied, I think.
When you slice the corner out of the first kick of the game, that's a nanny. Yeah. We've actually chatted about this before, haven't we? About how sometimes you just know within seconds whether nanny's on a good day or a bad day, and didn't take very long to work out he was having a bad day at the office.
No, definitely. I'm hoping that the reverse curse of the rank cast strikes, and he's fantastic in the...
Well, we're going to need him. I mean, if Valencia's out, and Valencia's been such a key part of United's attack, I mean, Rooney's got a whole bunch of goals, hasn't he, from Valencia's sort of incisive running and very old-fashioned wing play. So Nani's got to come in and he's got to find his form.
If it was Football Manager, I'd do something where, I played like three strikers and Cleverley in behind them instead of playing Nani on the wing at the moment, but obviously that doesn't work in real life, unfortunately.
So what do you think of the second leg? I mean, Ferguson will definitely play some of the fringe players that need games, so Cleverley will play for sure. Not that I'm calling him a fringe player, but he needs game, and maybe people like Park and maybe Giggs will get his 900th game and that kind of thing. It would kind of be nice to see some kids, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would be nice to see some kids, but this has just not been the season of... I mean, this has been the season of little, beautiful, exciting cameos from the kids, and Pogba getting the last 20 minutes wouldn't surprise me that much if we're really comfortable at that point. Pogba on for Cleverley after 60 minutes, if it's still 2-0 or whatever, that'd be fine. He's not going to start or anything though, I'm sure.
No, I don't think so. I can't see anything other than a United win though, and it looks like a trip to Moscow for the round of 187 million. I know you've got to play about 4 seasons worth of games in the Europa League, haven't you? Well, they've lost in lack of television money they make up for in fixtures, so you play an awful lot of games in the Europa League. I think Moscow, it looks like it'll probably be Moscow next, but no one will be looking forward to that trip in the middle of winter, will they?
It's not time for talking about the next round yet though, because United's capacity to stuff things up this season has been fairly dramatic, especially in Europe, although I would be surprised.
Yeah, I think losing to this Ajax side 3-0 at home would really top it. I have endless capacity to be cynical about these things, but I just can't see that one.
Yeah, it was like when you said that hubris be damned, Fernando Torres is completely and utterly shot. He did then set up a goal immediately after you tweeted that, of course, I should point out. But he hasn't scored. So.
And clearly that's what I meant.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess Carrick probably... I guess I probably wouldn't play Carrick against Ajax because, I mean, he's not suffering from any shortage of games and he's in excellent form and he's absolutely vital to United, so you might leave him out, but there's a real paucity of options if you do though, I guess. It was the first sighting of the Carrick-Cleverley partnership today as well, which I think is probably going to be quite a significant one over the next couple of seasons because it really is the most natural two of the collection of United central midfielders with various different talents and weaknesses that we have.
It's a nice combination. Interesting with Scholes playing and just playing very well recently. Carrick's actually moved further forward quite a lot of the time. He's further forward than Scholes, and you'd expect that to be slightly different with Cleverley in the side. Not that it'll make any real difference, but I think you're right about wrapping Carrick in cotton wool. There's no need to take any risks given the injury problems that United have had this season with Carrick for that one. Need him for the run-in for sure, and other players who can play against Ajax, given that the game is pretty much won, I'd say now. One thing that appears to be settled, and I find this rather worrying, as these pictures did surface quite some time ago, a tartan-looking kit for United next season.
Oh my good lord.
Seriously, it's definitely a WTF moment, that one.
Yeah, I mean, Rangers are going into administration. Fergie used to play for Rangers. Tartan kit. I think it might be a bit too strong to be a coincidence. I wonder if we're going to siphon off some of the profits from shirt sales to support the Keep Rangers Alive movement.
Yeah, well, I think even the Glazers wouldn't be able to fill a financial hole, that being £75 million worth of HMRC debt. I mean, not that I really want to talk about Rangers, kind of irrelevant. Not our problem that it's a club that's been mismanaged so badly, and we've got our own mismanagement problems ourselves, haven't we? But criminal, really. Not only in terms of how that club has been run and the fact that they've financially doped for years on money they didn't have, but the failure of the Scottish football authorities to regulate their clubs to make sure that kind of thing didn't happen. I mean, this is a club with 54 domestic titles. Yeah, this is not just some small club going bust because they couldn't make ends meet. This is one of the 2 richest clubs in Scotland. Clearly should be financially viable, chasing a dream it couldn't afford, I guess, and trying to spend money it didn't have. Yeah, really shocking, but probably so important to Scottish football, but that there's no way that they'll be allowed to fail. I mean, interesting that HMRC is involved though, because they probably won't let them cop out with a sort of 10 or 15 pence in the pound voluntary agreement, so it will be a full administration. They might even get liquidated if the HMRC is really on the case, but the thing is, given who Rangers is, they'll be formed as a separate entity and admitted back into the Scottish Premier League immediately, I would have thought.
Well, yeah, because the Scottish Premier League without Rangers is even more ridiculous than the Scottish Premier League with Rangers, isn't it? Of course, whenever clubs do spiral like that, the size of our debt burden just nags away slightly at the back of their mind. Because it's all very well the debt burden stopping us competing at the highest level or massively inhibiting our ability to compete at the highest level, but the spiral potential when you have levels of debt of that magnitude, it's always there. It's always...
Yeah, I mean, it certainly was when those PIK loans were in place and running at 16.5% interest, and not so much anymore, and the bond is kind of, United know what they're paying. It's 2 chunks of 23 and a bit million pounds every year. It's a hell of a lot of money just to chuck away at interest. But for the moment, at least until 2017, there's no desperation in it. There's no chance that United can't meet those payments, and have been, the Glaze family have been sucking money out of the club and slowly buying back some of that debt, and if and when the IPO happens, and it's a big if actually given the turmoil in the markets, then presumably a lot of the other debt will be paid down. It kind of has to be, otherwise you wouldn't buy a share in United, because it just doesn't look very good on the balance sheet to have that much kind of leverage. So at that point, United's financial future will look a bit more solid. We'll see how much debt is locked in after that, because it definitely lock the debt in. But yeah, it does bring it to mind. A long time since we've really talked about the Glazes in any kind of depth, and there's nothing really going to change until that IPO happens, and then of course we'll get a whole new level of transparency then. Football administrators don't take responsibility for when this happens. Portsmouth, Crystal Palace, Cardiff had their financial problems, Leeds, United, what happened at Liverpool before the more recent takeover by Fenway, they are failing in their governance. It's easy enough to sit behind a Companies Act and go, they're private companies, we can't tell them how to run themselves, but the FA is there, and the FA and the Premier League are there to govern football, and they're failing to do that.
It's always fascinating to hear you talk about this stuff, Ed, and I for one am very glad that there's people like you and Anders Red around to go through the finances and make it make sense to regular folk,
Regular folk.
Yeah, non-economist types.
Yeah, those who weren't dumb enough to do that kind of degree and spend their days looking at spreadsheets, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a winning line at parties, let me tell you. The ladies are fighting them off with a shitty stick.
Yes, so excellent week results-wise, decent week performance-wise, promising week players coming back from injury-wise, slight worry, of course, that Valencia will be out because he's been instrumental in a lot of the good things that have been going on at United. But this season rolls on, threatening to lurch into disaster, and then suddenly the light at the end of the tunnel appears again. And do you think we're going to win the league? I know it's sort of arbitrary to talk about it this week, but I've just been thinking about it quite a lot, looking at that Premier League table, looking at us 2 points behind City. It's exciting.
What do the odds say on the Betfair at the moment? Because I would say, my guess would be that United are probably sort of 6-4, 7-5-ish as a guess, and that's probably about right. I think City should be favourites from here. They've got a good run of fixtures. They play United at home. If I wanted to be in one of those positions, I'd want to be in City's position. I think they are slight favourites. I think a lot depends on the key games for United. So that game against City, the game at Tottenham coming up in a couple of weeks' time, get 6 points out of those games, then you're going to say yes, United will win the league. You've got to make sure we don't lose any more ridiculous points at home, especially, and the injury crisis has got to not drag on. If those things happen, if players do come back, if we get 4 points from those 2 games against City and Tottenham, I think United will win it. But I think the odds are slightly in favour of City at the moment, but only just.
I think it's very interesting. I think we're going to win the league. I kind of think we're going to win the league. I just said it twice. I was about to say it a third time. I think we're going to win the league. I don't know. I thought we were going to win the Champions League last season though, so I don't know anything. I just think we've got a lot of things happening right at the right time. It'd be fascinating to see whether Tevez comes back to City. Did you see that? Do you find it credible at all?
No, I think he'll only have a disruptive influence. I can't imagine he's suddenly going to go into the team and set the world on fire, and I would have thought that the other players will resent him being there as well. Now, I think it only caused damage to City's unity. I think it's the Tevez camp that's driving this, because he didn't get the move, and so he realises he's got to play. Otherwise he'll end up not only City being forced into a cut price deal in the summer, but him being forced into a cut price deal, and where Tevez is, he definitely doesn't want that. So he needs to come back and play, but I can't see it being a good thing for them. I mean, they upgraded when they got Sergio Aguero. Fact.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You mustn't end sentences with fact, Ed. It sounds awfully Benitez.
Fact.
Benitez for England, by the way.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant. Yeah, they should do it. Kenny Dalglish for England would be better, but yeah.
No, I don't wish that on England. Even England, I don't wish Kenny Dalglish on. Anyway, so you mentioned 2017 earlier, and just in order that this Rantcast doesn't last until 2017, we should probably wrap up with a prediction of the one fixture we've got until the next time we speak, which it will be in a week's time. We play Ajax at home. I'm going to say 2-0 again, actually, and a late goal again to make it 2-0.
I think it'll be a very open game. United can play a few other players, and Ajax have to go and attack. So I think it's going to be a bit like Schalke in the semi-final last year, but maybe a few goals, maybe a 3-2.
If it's going to be like Schalke, can we get Darren Gibson back just for that game?
Shoot, Agent Gibson.
All right, so been a pleasure as always. Thank you very much for listening. There's something going on with our listenership figures, so if you're new to the Rantcast, we do hope you enjoy it. If you want to catch Ed or I in between shows, you can hit us up on Twitter at United Rant for Ed and at UTD Rantcast for me. We always love it if you leave us reviews on iTunes, and you can also interact with us on Facebook by hitting like on United Rant or at unitedrant.co.uk, where there will be a week's worth of fantastic Manchester United editorial, no doubt, Ed.
I'll give it a shot, and we'll see you next week.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.